This episode of the podcast is sponsored by The Best Man's Promise, book number 2 in the Navarro series by author Sarah Taino. Here's a few useful details. This is a male-male romance, Puerto Rican Haitian lead, grumpy sunshine, forced proximity, forbidden attraction, wedding shenanigans, guava cheesecake for breakfast, and snowed in. Here's the blurb. He can't forget the kiss he shared with the best man, but is he the best man for him? His sister's wedding isn't the ideal place for Rafael Navarro to reconnect with the man he kissed in a moment of reckless abandon, but it's impossible to avoid best man Etienne Galwa. The gorgeous Haitian photographer hasn't forgotten the intimate moment they shared, even if Rafi is the most maddening person he's ever met. Can the two find common ground, proving opposites not only attract, they can become lovers for life? From Harlequin Special Edition, Believe in Love, Overcome Obstacles, Find Happiness. We are so excited for this book. Erin and I were both huge fans of Sarah Taino's Harlequin Special Edition debut back in September 2021, A Delicious Dilemma, and we have been counting the days down for this release. So we are so excited for it. Don't forget, it releases February 21st, 2023 from Harlequin Special Edition. And thank you so much to Sarah for sponsoring this episode of the show.
Hello and welcome to the Categorically Romance podcast. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Bree.
And today it is January 2023 Books Club. We're talking Kiss, and we have with us author Celestine Martin. Celestine, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so thrilled to be here.
Tell us about you. I mean, because you had a book. I read it last year. It was fantastic. But tell us about you, your romance origin story. Tell us all the things.
Oh my gosh. So I'm going to start from when I was 12, because that was the first time I read a romance novel. Like a dear sweet family friend, Mr. Daniels, he gave me my first romance novel. We were on this long road trip and I was just looking through his back seat and I saw this thick paperback book about a woman and a man on the Oregon Trail, and they were going to fall in love, but it was fake dating. And I was like, oh my God. And I
fake dating on the Oregon Trail?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. It was either the Goodnight Loving Trail or the Oregon Trail, one of those. But it was so just romantic. And I asked him, he said, yeah, you can borrow it. And thank goodness, because that kind of started my love affair with romance. And in high school, there was this bookstore by my school, and every time I would save my lunch money, and then I would go, and they had this back room. And this back room, imagine it was like Willy Wonka, but for Harlequin. It was from top to bottom, they just had all these category romances. You're talking Blaze. You had all the series. You had the the suspense series. You had all these series. You had the original blue covers, that was like blue teal covers of books, and I would buy them. It would be for $2. You could get 10 Harlequin categories. And I would stuff my book bag with them. And then when she's like, oh, I had to change the price from to $8 for $2. I said, that's still fine. I would buy them and read them at lunch. I would read them on the bus on the way home. And so my love affair with writing, with romances, started before me writing it. My writing started in graduate school, because I went to graduate school to get my MFA, and I read, the classic literary stuff. You had your Dennis Johnson, you had your Paul Bowles, you had, of course, my love, Toni Morrison, Alice Walker. I was reading all these literary writers, but I loved reading romance still. I rediscovered my love for romance in graduate school, and I would go to where was it? Goodwill. And I would buy all the romances that would be for oh, you can get this for $1 or you can for $1. That's where I discovered Jennifer Cruzy. I rediscovered a lot of people with a Kimani line, had a lot of Kimani lines in Goodwill that
Mhm.
I would buy. And of course, I found in the public library my love Beverly Jenkins. And so I was just like, oh my goodness. So that's my love affair. And then it was finally that was just like, I was reading one book and it was just like a lightning bolt where this character, they were looking into each other's eyes. They were both blonde and they had blue eyes. And I said, well, I could write a romance. Why can't they have brown eyes? Why can't they do this? So I was just like, all right, I'm going to write a romance. So like I was like 24 when I decided I was going to write a romance, and that's how it started. Just a lot of false starts, a lot of like half abandoned novels, a lot of national novel writing trunk novels that will never see the light of day.
I
And
feel like you're,
so
like, calling me out here. That's how I feel. I feel like you're
listen,
calling me out.
it is okay. Sometimes you don't need that pirate romance. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. I
Oh,
get
oh, I
that.
don't know. I might need that pirate
Yeah,
romance.
Aaron loves a pirate romance.
It was just like, I'm a history nerd too. So when you start researching that period, I'm just like, oh, that's why historical writers, my historical romance writers, nothing but love for them. I want to just give them a beer and a shot because I'm like, the fact you have to balance like storytelling with, the historical accuracy. You have to do this delicate dance and also make sure that you emotionally engage your readers. God bless
Yeah,
you because it
bless
takes
them.
a lot of effort because you always have the well actually people come in and it's just like, well, actually this is a good
Yes.
story, enjoy the story. Well, they didn't have that until 1853. I'm like, okay, all right, but that's why there's a whole
Like,
nother
romance
story.
is a fantasy, okay? Does it have to be super
Historical.
accurate? If we
No.
wanna talk, like, historical accuracy, let's talk about the fact that people rarely took baths during this time period, okay?
You couldn't afford it. It was a luxury. It was
Right?
literally a luxury. Like, who's gonna take a bath this month? Me. Okay, you. They might do a quick bird bath or something, but you're not filling up a whole tub. That takes a lot of energy and a lot of time and a lot of
Yes.
work. So I understand that. So that's where I was just like, I love paranormal too as well. So I started writing paranormal and light paranormal romance. I grew up with my Teen Witch, my OG charm that I always saw every Sunday. I was furious when they killed off Prue. I was like, I'll never love again. I was like so mad about Prue dying. And so I watched that. I watched like the first couple seasons of the Vampire Diaries until I realized, hold up, they're not going to use Bonnie, then I'm going to have to bow out. I would check in once in a while in the later seasons, but it's just like, oh my goodness, give her something to do. So
Give her something, yeah.
yeah, give her
Mm,
something to do. She's not so you keep on using her magic as a plot device. And oh my goodness, I grew up during that kind of witchy renaissance that's been taking place and has taken place like every 10 years. People remember, hey, witches are powerful, witches are cool, this is magic. But then I feel like it's always heavy magic. It's like, oh, we've got to, get all this. Ooh, like no, what happened to the fun side of magic? Some like the love spells and the wishes and the desire to, oh, I want to win the lotto. Let me put like burn some bay leaves and put them in my wallet for good luck.
yeah.
There's that type of side of magic that I grew up with. That my mother is like, okay, I'm gonna spritz you with patchouli oil so you're safe. Here you go. Like that type of magic is what I grew up with. And of course, my mom, no matter what we were doing, if Practical Magic was on HBO, we sit down, we're watching Practical Magic, we write watching Practical Magic. And so that's where kind of my love affair with witches and magic and tradition, and especially with African folklore and African traditions, because my family, I like to call myself the daughter of the Great Migration because most of my family came up during the 1920s, 1930s, 1940s up to New York City and settled here. And they brought whatever clothes were on their back and whatever traditions that they held. So I inherited a lot of that kind of knowledge and background. And so it's just like, well, I don't see that in the books that I'm reading. Not that I didn't say it doesn't exist, but I didn't see it, or I wasn't looking in the right places, because I don't want to say like I was the only one out here. No, I wasn't the only one out here. It's just like I was like, okay, I want to either add my voice to the collection, or I want to say this is the type of magic that I want to see, because I'm not going to claim any being first, but I'm going to definitely say like I wanted to add my perspective to the conversation. So I will say that.
And then we got wishful thinking.
We do. We had wishful thinking, which was, oh my goodness. I started in 2016. I started in 2016 in a need of kind of cheering myself up. I was having a really rough year. And I was like, well, what's something that'll make me smile, make me laugh, and make me just like, 'cause I was missing home because I moved to the city for career opportunities and also school opportunities. And I was like, I miss my hometown, because I grew up at the Jersey Shore for 20 some odd years. And I was just like, I miss home. I'm going to write a book that captures that feeling of home for me. And so, yeah, wishful thinking and Lucy and Serena and Callie and Ursula, my little crew of witches, just, being hydrated and blessed down at the Jersey Shore, doing magic and having fun. So seeing it on the shelf, I'm still like, oh yeah, I read a book.
You wrote a book, right? And I mean, we have a witch and a merman. So where did that combination come from?
For me, it was, I've always wanted to see a human mer person romance, but then I was like, well, why don't I just turn her into a witch? Let's do that. Because there was the first version, it was definitely much more dramatic, like, oh my goodness, the sea wants to kill you, or something like that. It was a curse, but I was just like, no, I don't have the emotional bandwidth to do this at the current moment and make it so dramatic. I made it fun and frothy and light, because I wanted someone to pick up this book and like, you know what, I needed that. That was just like a little glass. Somebody told me my writing was like a peach Bellini, and I was like, I'll take it. I love Bellinis. Thank you for that compliment. I will take it. Just a little something you would have with brunch. So how it came about was like, I love merfolk. I love mermaids. Like my husband, for one of my birthdays, he got me a book of mermaid folklore, and I devoured it, and I like highlighted and underlined it, all the marginalia. I was like, I'm gonna write a merman romance, because we see mermaids. I wanted to see a merman romance, because I said, well, we always see mermaids. What about mermen? And then having to figure out the anatomy of a merman. That was an interesting couple of days. It's just like, well, how does this work? He's just like, huh. So that was just like, I just felt a need to be like, you know what, this is what I want to see, and this is what I want to write, and that's how it just kind of came about for me. So yeah, it's like, I like this.
Well, the way that it ended off, like the romance was tied together perfectly, but there's a relationship in that book that like my blood was boiling during a couple of scenes. So like, whose book is next? What's happening with that relationship, that friendship? What's going on? What are we getting next?
Book 2 will answer that, because I'm pretty sure if I say anything, my editor will come and
we don't need that. We love editors here. We respect editors.
My editor, she is awesome. She is great. I will tell you right now, I should be like, listen, don't you spoil anything. Because everyone I ask is like, oh, who do you think it is? Because when I go to signings, which I have signings, it's still new to me. They'll say, whose book is next? And I'm like, whose book do you think is next?
Good. Okay. I was like, she's gonna save this for last. And oh gosh.
Oh, no, I'm not going to save it for last, but I will say the beautiful thing about book 2 is that page 1, you get the answer to what happens.
Okay,
and
good.
It's just like,
thank God.
Yes. No. I'm the type of person where I hate tension. I'm just like, and writing it is hard for me, because I'm just like, I'm just going to tell them right now. I mean, they're just like, no, honey, you can't do that. You gotta tease it out. I was like, but I just want to tell people. But the first page, you find out what happens, and I'm just like, good. And then the rest of the book, I am just like, it's my kind of love letter to Midsummer's Night's Dream. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, okay. When does it come out?
That's a good question. Should be coming out this fall. They told me this fall. I need to get through these edits, this revision, because this book was, like I said, I kind of wrote myself into a bit of a conundrum because the relationships are so strong in the book. I have to like stick the landing. I'm Simone Biles, honey, with this book. I swear, because I have to make sure that I stick the landing because I want to make sure that when they unite, which they are going to do, they're going to reunite. Once my witches reunite and they come back together, they have to be it has to be sincere and it has to make sense. And you don't want to be like, I forgive you. No, I forgive you. It's like there's going to be work put into it because that character needs work put into them. So I will say that. For those who haven't read the
Oh my
book,
God.
read the book. But this
You
book,
got
we're going.
time. Yes.
Yes.
Like Erin said, we are here for Books Club to talk Kiss with you.
Yes.
And I did a little bit of digging, and I want to read to you all what I found, and then Celestine, we want to hear all about how it felt at the moment when these books were coming out. Tell us all the things. But so I went on Fiction Database to, of course, see like how many books came out. So this is actually one of the shorter running lines. It ran from February 2013 through October 2014. And it says that it released 85 books, but the 85th book that's listed there actually came out in like 2012. So I don't know what's going on with there. So I guess between 84 and 85. Overseas, if you were overseas, it was Riva. It wasn't Kiss. There were 4 titles released a month. And we had authors like Amy Andrews, Stephanie London, Joss Wood, Allie Blake, Heidi Rice, Liz Fielding. They were writing from it. And the only thing that I could find from Harlequin's website was, and this was in the back of the books that I read. So it's like, you think of flirting as an art form. Harlequin Kiss stories are all about the delirium of a potential new romance where fun-loving heroines and irresistible heroes just can't get enough of each other. And so then, Erin, our friend Lynn Spencer, I found an article, I think it was like a blog post she did back in 2013 on allaboуtromance.com. And she did an interview with author Kelly Hunter, who had the first Kiss title called The One That Got Away, and another of its launch authors, Kelly Lang. And she asked, what drew you to Kiss out of all the Harlequin lines, and what do you think makes it different from the others? And Kelly said, there's so much to love about this line. Superb individual author voices. So many Kiss authors are category romance royalty. How cool is that? Amazing global settings. And there's a special mix of lightness and depth that all our authors bring to the stories. Humor and drama, light and dark, fun and flirty, yet serious about finding and keeping love. And then Kimberly said, there's a fresh feeling to Kiss that really attracts me. I love that we can and are encouraged to stretch expectations and try new story ideas that don't quite fit in other lines. It's exciting. So that was at the beginning of it. Celestine, as a reader, take us back to 2013. How did it feel at the time as these books were coming out? And like, what are some of your faves?
Oh my goodness. So 2013, I was still in my adjunct lecturer phase of my teaching career. So seeing those books were just like, oh my goodness, it's like I can't afford brunch, but I can go to these books. I can rent these books from the library. Like just seeing those bright covers, and I remember the covers the most where you have like people who are just like, you have like a lot of pinks, a lot of tropical covers, a lot of bright covers, a lot of like, it's just like, it's very distinct. It's different from your presents where you usually have that exotic locale and, glamorous. It's different from Harlequin romance where back then you had the, those layered pink light covers, and it different from medical, right? Very different from medical that has usually that blue, like kind of Grey's Anatomy-esque type color. So Harlequin Quest stood out because if you wanted some sex on the page and you wanted some little amour, some passion, but you were like, I want to feel like I could be friends with the heroines rather than you're like, oh, this glamorous woman being swept off her feet. You'll have your billionaires occasionally who slip in through a Harlequin kiss, but then you have this guy who's like, he's down to earth. He eats a cheeseburger. He's like, he has caviar and cheeseburgers. Ooh la la. So having it come out, it felt like it was very just like, it felt like candy. It felt like you going into a candy store and you seeing something, you're like, oh my goodness, they have like my favorite little pack of holiday candies just for me. And I love the Harlequin kiss because it felt just like, this is a line for me. And at that point, I was definitely like one of the heroines. I was in my early mid-20s. I was figuring things out. I was in the city because a lot of the books took place in New York. I'm like, oh my goodness, they took place in New York. And there's always this one girl who's like, oh no, there's two people. I rented this apartment. No, I rented this apartment. Whose bed is it anyway? Which I did read, was one of the earliest ones that I read. That was by, because I wrote that down, Natalie Anderson. So whose bed is it anyway? About two people who are like, we're going to share this apartment. Oh, there's one shower, one bed, one couch, one love, all that good stuff. So it had my favorite tropes, and they were always like dialed up just a little bit, right? They're just dialed up just a little bit. There's like this kind of flirtiness, because I did look it up too as well. I looked up the description before, and it's just like, it was very flirty. Like there was banter, like they were going to go back and forth. There was going to be some snappish. There was sarcastic heroes with a big bank account. I was here for it. And then you had heroines who weren't going to, say like, oh, roll, like they weren't going to like, oh, your money will dazzle me, or, but I feel like there was definitely the two, the hero and the heroine, they were definitely on the same level. And as Harlequin Quiz continued on, and I read more of the line, I realized that there was some really, like, they went after like subject matters that were very like, wow, this is really deep. They were going into it. I know one of my favorite ones was Driving Her Crazy. I don't know if you've read that one. It's by Amy Andrews, who's a really good, like, anyone I've read of hers in the the Kiss line, always really good. I mean, I read it all the way through in one sitting. That was the one that dealt with a lot of body images, and she does, one of the first books that I saw in a Harlequin actually talk about content warning, and it talks about PTSD, and it talks about this, just going to summarize it real quick. A photographer, he got into a really bad accident in a war zone, and so he's dealing with his PTSD. And also there's a woman who's dealing with having to deal with a toxic relationship. She was like essentially like starving herself, and trigger warning for anyone who needs it, who's basically like changing her body so that she can be accepted by her former lover. And the two of them really kind of talk about these issues, and there's an honest conversation. There's no placating. There's no like, oh, everything be okay. It's like, well, have you thought about going to therapy? Have you so there's honest conversation between these two characters, and and it's done during a road trip, and of course there's one bed and there's one shower, and there's all these little fun little light moments in between the heavier moments that makes, like, that's why I loved Harlequin Kiss so much. It was actually the first line I could see myself writing for. I was like, oh my goodness, I live in New York and I could write this, and so I could do it. So I had this whole plan in this notebook, and like you were saying, it ended. I'm the type of person where I have to take a lot of time to come up with a good idea, because like I ingest a lot of things. Like there's a writer, what is her name? She has a writer You Should Quit series. Becca Simey, she's very good. Like my brain, there are people who writer brains, right? There's a writer brain that makes it like, oh, you pre-made bread. You already have pre-made stories in your head. And there's some people who are like bread makers. You need raw materials to make the bread, to make the sandwiches, right? I have that type of brain where I need to gather a lot of information. I've got to like go out for walks, and I've got to read a lot of books, and I have to do things before I come up with a good idea. But when I have a good idea, I got it. Mm-hmm. It's good. So yeah. So by the time I came with my perfect kiss idea, the line was done. And I was like, we're right for Kiss. I was so heartbroken behind it. But
I saw so many authors, like between us posting and our good friend Sarah, she lives in Australia, and she posted about like, hey, the podcast is doing Kiss this month. And there were authors that were like, I wanted to submit to that line, like Harlequin authors. And it's like, oh man.
It was accessible, right? It's that little sweet spot in between, like someone who's a billionaire and then someone who's like, I'm a veterinarian. Oh, okay, what about like, let's say a social media advisor? Boom, there we go. You can still make a little money. You can still do some things. And so you wanted that little area in between where you're like, you're successful, but you're not like, millionaire. You have, it's just like, there was always that spot where it's just like, even with Harley Quinn Presents, which I absolutely love the people who are doing Harley Quinn Presents and still make me fall for a billionaire, even with all the billionaire and the problematic billionaires that we have in this world today. I appreciate them still making me fall in love with those usual Greek billionaires, the Dimitris, and everybody. So I felt like that Harley Quinn line was just so perfect. And when we lost it, you don't see those same covers anymore. You don't see those little fun, bright, poppy colors anymore. And it's just like, even though, I mean, these Harley Quinn covers, whoever is running for Desire, Harley Quinn Desire covers,
Oh yeah.
and oh my gosh, gorgeous. Whoever is doing the cover design, they're doing a wonderful job. Because I'll sit there and I'm like, let me go to the library, let me rent this. It's on hold. You have like 4 weeks, 7 weeks wait for a book, and I'm loving it. So it's just like, I miss that kiss. I miss Kiss. I sincerely do.
Did it feel like it was for like a specific age demographic, maybe?
It was. I would say if you were between the ages, I would say, I'll be generous, 23 and about the oldest heroine, I'm saying oldest, about 33, 34. So you had that band, and especially if you were closer to your 30s, you definitely saw a lot of those heroines like 29, because I wasn't 29 at the time of reading it, but I was in spitting distance of 29 and 30 when I was reading Kiss. So it felt like, oh, these heroines are my age, because usually with Harley Quinn Presents, from what I remember, because it's like, you have usually on the younger side, she's around 25, 24 in those. But then if you want more older heroines, you really have to kind of look around the lines for older heroines. I'm saying older heroines like 29, 30, 33. Like the older I've gotten a big fan of Harley Quinn Special Edition, because there was one book, because who was it? She writes delightful romances, and she had this Love Struck Vermont series. And
Terry Wilson.
Yes. Oh, I
Yeah.
met her once, and she covered in glitter from head to toe. She like Glinda the Good Witch. She is gorgeous. I love her.
She's so girly. It's the best thing ever.
It is. Her Love Struck series, oh, I devoured it. But the heroines were older. They were older. They were in their 30s. There was one that was 40, and she was having she was a geriatric pregnancy, which I was also a geriatric pregnancy as well. So it was just like, oh my goodness. So Harley Quinn captured Harley Quinn Kiss captured a very special moment where, dreams, if you're listening to Taylor Swift and you're doing all this stuff, like, it was a nice little age range. I remember being the age. I remember being the uncertainty. I'm like, oh, will I fall in love? Who will I fall in love with? And all that good stuff. I just wish they still had that. Like, I'm still waiting for a New Adult to come back. They got to bring New Adult back. Because I was like, I have a whole New Adult novel that I am here for, that I wrote at that age, and I'm waiting for a New Adult. And I want older heroines, because it's not like, I feel like 35 seems to be the cutoff point, because same thing with, like, my heroines are going to age with me. I can't have like, oh, I'm going to write 25-year-old because I said right then. I'm not in that mindset right there. Like, I could write, but it's going to be 25 from my point of view. Not from, currently. I wouldn't want to be a 25-year-old now, because I will say this, it's just like, I feel like there's so many options. I would just be immobile with all the options that you have out there. Like, I was literally on the cusp, because I am what's called an elder millennial. I'm one of the, like, listen, you put
early,
on
like the 80s, mid 80s, baby.
Yes, I am. Like, you put on 1,000 Miles by Vanessa Carlton, I will bring it down the house. Just make my way downtown. Like, let's do it. Come on.
We need Vanessa Carlton to make a comeback, because, okay, Pretty Baby by her, I think is just one of the best songs ever. Gosh. She had a gorgeous voice. She's such a Kiss heroine. She's a Kiss heroine.
Right? Oh, yeah.
If we had to create a soundtrack for Kiss, I feel like for sure 1,000 Miles would be on the soundtrack.
because you've got to do like, I mean, whatever 13 going on 30 would be like the masthead for the, if we had to do like a Harlequin kiss like welcome basket, you would have a copy of 13 going on 30. You're going to have at least a copy of Harmonium. You're going to have some type of ironic t-shirt put in the basket
Yes.
too as well.
Yeah.
And ballet flats that are just a little fancy.
Yeah.
It was like, I would do it like a kiss theme party. I'm like, did anyone ask for this? No one asked for it, but I did it and I don't care.
We talk theories here a lot. So, okay, Aaron, was this your first or no?
Yes, this was my first Harlequin kiss.
Okay, so because I besides the two that I read, I had only read one more. But with this being your first, what are your initial thoughts and why did we only get 80 something books in this series? What do you think?
I don't know because I wasn't reading romance when these were
Coming
being
out.
published.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to get my head in the headspace of what these weren't delivering to the target audience. But I feel like these books, if they were being published today, would be hits. Like,
Do you think they were ahead of their time?
Yes.
I think maybe that's it. Yeah, I think the readership just like wasn't quite ready for them. The Twilighters, the people that got into reading because of Stephanie Myers, hadn't quite made the transition to reading
Full on romance. Yeah.
full on romance, right?
Interesting. And then, okay, so like you and me, we talked title. We've talked with the cover. We've talked with Mr. Tony Horvath, right? And we know how much like the cover, the title, all of that is like such a package. Looking at the cover of the one you read, if you took Harlequin off, would it read category romance to you?
Yeah. It would.
Okay.
Yeah, just looking at it now, especially because so I read Mr. Not So Perfect by Jessica Hart, and there's a red. This took place in London, so you've got the red phone booth behind our characters and stuff, and it's just it kind of screams Harlequin, Mills and Boone.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Celestine, for you now that like there's so much time in between the time when it ended and now that we're talking about it, looking back on it, did you have a sense that it was ending, or did it totally take you as a reader at the time by surprise?
So that was, oh my goodness, that was kind of my beginning era of me. I'm going to be a romance writer. So I would always look on like Harlequin. I signed up for their emails. I signed up for the websites. And also I had joined at that point. Was I a member of RWA? I was starting to get into RWA. And so I heard rumblings of it, but they're like, oh, we're going to transfer into something else, something new. And then that transformation never really took place. They're like, oh, based on feedback from our readers, we've decided that we're not going to continue on with the Harlequin kiss line. And I'm thinking to myself, who doesn't like the Harlequin kiss line? I'm thinking like, what? But it's perfect. Like, and like I said, I was ahead of its time because even though, like, I feel like, they had content warnings, which beforehand, you went into the book like no warning whatsoever.
You had no idea, yeah.
And when you read something, you were like, whoa, where did that come from? That subplot. I've stopped the book when there was like very disturbing things. And you think about, oh, in the genre, okay, maybe there'll be something, but it takes you off guard. At least when I was going into the book, and you go into the book, you're like, okay, you're going to see this. Prepare yourself because if you're not in the place to read that, you need that warning, right? Just for your own health. And so there were rumblings about it, but I thought that they would just like repackage it, change the cover, make it a bit more like towards like more presents or even more towards Harlequin romance. And then when they stopped, it was kind of like, wow, that's really, whoa. It's just, I don't know what happened, and I wish that they had given it a bit more time to just like find its voice or path. If they have done like another 2 years, it definitely would have hit. It would have hit, and it would have been like really good because I felt like they had some of their very strong writers and a lot of writers who I recognize wrote for presents or wrote for romance because I'm a big Harlequin romance fan too as well, and special edition as well. So I don't know. It's just like, it was definitely a shock for those who love the line.
Okay, so here's my two question theories to pose to you two. Because, I mean, Erin knows this, and I've shared this on the podcast. Like, my first time reading a heroine who had an abortion was my first kiss. And it wasn't just like, slickly put in there and moved on. Like, no, she was like, I'm going to fudge the numbers here, but she's like, I make $30,000 a year and I'm $70,000 in debt. I did what I had to do because there's no way I was going to bring a kid into the world when I was financially struggling, and she's like, I think about the baby every day, but I did what I had to do. I wouldn't take it back, and that was I was like, oh man, I thought we don't do abortions in romance because I had never read it before. And I'm like, here's this kiss from 2014. So was it okay, I hate to say that, like, there is a huge age range that predominantly reads category. But when you read books like these, where it's like clearly people loved it, like even like KU authors that I've read and loved, both of the books that I read, I saw them having read it like 7 years ago. And so I know that like there were women in that age group that it was targeting that were reading it, but was its demise because the predominant age range of category readers has always been older? That's my first question that I want to ask you guys. And also just the fact that it was tackling issues that I think maybe romance at the time wasn't ready for. So what do y'all think about those two?
I think so. Yeah, because I think about the people who read category romances, they are going to be of a certain like age group, and they also have a certain sensibility, right? Like, as someone who was younger and who was that age range,
You loved it.
I loved it because it felt like I could be friends with the character.
This person. Yeah.
I could be friends with the character, or I could have a crush on the hero. Like, it made sense to me. So like you said, like there were situations that people were going through that made sense, because I was like, someone who went through that. Somebody
Exactly.
who's struggling.
Yeah.
Somebody. So it's not anything thing. And it's also the fact that it's on the page rather than implied, because anytime when I see that subject, abortion, on the page, it's like, no, she was very clear. I did this because of, the financial issue. And also, why am I bringing a person into this? And so it's just like, no. So I think that the fact that they were tackling those issues, and because they were on the page, very explicit, having conversations about it, and not being apologetic. That was another thing I remember about the Kiss heroines. There was no apologies about it, and if they were apologetic, it was through self-ownership. Because there was another book, because like I said, I did a lot of research for this, because I was like, I've got to come correct. There was one book, like the Wedding Season series, where you have what was it? The girl least likely to be married.
That's Amy Andrews.
Yeah, Amy Andrews. Like, Amy Andrews was bringing the heat when it came to Kiss. So wherever you, Amy, thank you. Because I was reading that book, and it was very clear, even though she doesn't state it, this woman is either neurodivergent, or she has trouble with interpersonal relationships, or she doesn't read social cues. And the hero, he loves how intelligent she is. He loves how straightforward she is. She doesn't BS him, and she doesn't apologize for it. But then she comes to find out she also suffers from either mania or bipolar. Even though she's not explicit on the page, she definitely has history where she's been in a mental health crisis, and it's on the page.
It's on the page. Yeah.
And it's very clear. And she's like, and she says, this medicine, it helps me. She's taking medicine to help with her issues. And she takes it every morning dutifully. And the hero makes a joke. And she's like, no. You have to accept me taking this medicine because it helps me. And that's it.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
oh, I love that.
I love it. That's why I was just like, it was like our heroines with warts and flaws and everything, but it wasn't hidden, it wasn't highlighted, it was current, it was actually there. And I think that for some readers, they're like, well, I read romance in order to escape, which, you know what? I understand that. I'm not sitting here. I'm like, I get it. But also, I also read romance to enforce certain things. Like for someone who has a chronic health disease, or someone who's immunocompromised, or someone whose romance includes that, yeah, I have someone who loves me, I'm this wonderful relationship, but then I have to make sure that I do to stay in this relationship, to stay healthy, to stay present in this relationship, I have to make sure that I'm physically, emotionally healthy as well. And that's what I loved about Harlequin Kiss. And that's why it was just like, it was such a loss.
I know. Well, what do
Yeah.
you think, Erin? Do you think that okay, because we have this new line that's coming, right, in 2024. And we really have this hope that it brings readers who have never read category to category. And I think for a long time, a lot of category readers may have picked up their first category because someone in their life read it, and they saw their mom reading it or whatever. Was Kiss an attempt at was Kiss basically this line that we have coming out in 2024, like but back in 2013? Do you think it was an attempt to try to get new readers on board? But maybe at the time, category was still like in this cycle of you pick it up if you already have a foot in the door, like your mom reads it, your aunt reads it, she brings them home from the library, like what do you think?
Yeah, I think you're probably onto something there, because I'm trying to put myself into my book reading mindset back around that time. And Kindle, the device, was kind of blowing up, but there was no KU yet. There were still, people could put their books on Kindle for free, these self-published authors and stuff. I'm not sure where Harlequin was with their ebooks at that time. So the readership probably still was that just classic readership of either subscribe to the books or pick them up from their grocery store or whatever anytime they're in there. So I would definitely think that, especially with these covers, that they're shooting for a fresh demographic in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But back to your theory about it ending because it being too much for the classic readership, I guess we'll just put it that way. I think you might be onto something there too, because 2012, I'm putting my political hat on right now, but trying to not get too political with it. But a black man was reelected president at that time, and it was kind of the beginning of this new culture war that we have found ourselves in today's environment, of things being very polarized, of certain people saying life needs to be this way, and other people saying life can, whatever. Everyone has their own opinions about things. And at that time, I think that culture war really started to take root. And there was possibly some pushback from, say, a Presents reader that picks one of these up and is like, well, no. A surprise baby is supposed to mean that these two characters find love however they need to find it. It doesn't mean that, there's an abortion involved there, which my book that I read, Mr. Not Quite Perfect, it had an interesting angle with the surprise baby. So the heroine's mother, our heroine, was a surprise baby, and she kind of had this chip on her shoulder about her mother never telling her about her father. But we come to find out that her father rejected her mother when he found out that she was pregnant, and was pretty much saying, get out of my life. And her mother hid it from her until his, her mother didn't even break it to it. Our heroine figured it out herself, but her father had died. And her mother's like, I hid this from you because he was going to break your heart. If you went and found him, he was not going to be kind to you. If he was going to shatter every perception you had of this idea or dream or whatever of who you thought your father was. And what you were missing out on your whole life. I did this to protect you. And that's, not take, for example, it Presents, that's not how something like that plays out in a Presents.
Because I know there was a How to Bag a Billionaire where there is a surprise baby. The heroine's mother has a surprise baby with the hero's father. And so the two of them team up to go and find the father, who's out in Thailand, because he's one of those Peter Pan characters, never grow up. And I'm telling you, I'm reading like, okay, how's he going to respond? How's he going to respond? This dude, he's like, well, oh, wow, that's nice. Your mom's pregnant? he starts looking at the door. They have to keep this man from running out on his son and the heroine. And I was like, wow. And the way they play it, the hero steps up. He's like, this is gonna be my little brother or sister. I'll step up. If he won't do it, I'll be the man for him. I was like, thank you. Thank you. And it that is so real. And like sometimes people act unheroically, and you have to take comfort in the people who show up for you. And
Yeah.
that's why I was just like, what? Yeah, because I remember when Obama was reelected, and all of a sudden, I think he won the seat, but then he lost. Did he lose the Senate or the House?
I think
He
both.
right, and he by they lost a lot of seats there. So then you start to have this pushback, and so I remember just the changing. People were like, "Oh well," and then you started hearing about tradition and traditional and all this stuff. And I said, "But that's not how life works. You have traditions and you have certain things, but then realistically, that's not how life works. Like love is messy. Families are messy. Like
But now
yeah,
looking back on it, so do you all feel like I kind of question, okay, if it just by chance lasted longer than it did, right? But I feel like sometimes part of the greatness is the fact that they're over, right?
yeah,
Like what would Kiss look like today? And part of me really kind of feels like it would look like
oh,
this line that's coming out.
Uh-huh.
But
Yeah.
like
I agree.
there's something just knowing that it did so much in such a little bit of time and so long ago kind
Mm-hmm.
of makes it really great to me. I don't know. What do y'all think? Like would we have wanted them to draw it out?
Man, it's for me. It's like holiday candy is the best candy. I know it's the same candy from all year round, just repackaged. But I'm gonna buy those Valentine chocolate hearts in bulk because it's so special, because it's so finite, because I
Yeah.
can't get that chocolate, those delicious Reese's Pieces peanut butter hearts any time of the year except for the month of February. So I feel like because it was so short and so sweet, that it makes it special. And the fact that, renting these books and reading them and being like, wow, these hold up. But
Yeah.
they hold up even 10 plus years. They hold up. And so that makes me very happy to be able to read it and say, like, okay, it wasn't just fond memories. It was like, wow. And it encouraged me, like, I could write that.
Yeah.
I could write something as fun and frothy and flirty, and that's what like
See,
Harlequin
that's the
kisses
thing
me.
that's what gets me is like
Yeah.
reading mine. Okay, we'll have to get into books, but like
Yes.
reading the ones that I read, I was like, oh man, like just that feeling of like I want to write something like this, and I think
Yes.
that this
Yes.
line
Mm-hmm.
probably did that for a lot of people.
It did. It did. It
I
really
don't
did.
know. Aaron, so you already touched on yours a little bit. Was there anything else you wanted to mention about the one that you read or just like overall thoughts, how you feel for it as like your first one?
Yeah, so this was a fake dating and a best friend's brother romance. And it had a real nice twist on the fake dating. So our heroine is a journalist and she's got to write this article can we create Mr. Perfect? So she gets her best friend's brother who's like an engineer. He doesn't care about fashion. He doesn't care about modern art, things like that. And she's going to try and turn him into a man that has it all. So has fine tastes, is into the art scene, and I guess he's an engineer, so he can fix your car. I guess that's something they brought up. So he has that already. But she sets him up with what's essentially the top Victoria's Secret model in this world, and they're going to go on these stage dates to try and make him a Mr. Perfect. And so you've got the fake dating there of these two characters, the hero and this side character fake dating, and oh, is she gonna fall for him? But then our hero and heroine keep having these moments where their eyes meet and they stare into each other without saying anything, and the sparks are flying. And then so for him to agree to do all of this, she has to help him go to this dinner and get this promotion that he's going to that he's really shooting for. And so they have to fake date there. So it was a nice twist on fake dating, and I love the London setting. And I really liked that bit of history that I went into with the heroine's father and her relationship with her mother. Definitely good mix up on the tropes and just a lot of fun, just very flirty and just very fun.
I mean, you love presents, Aaron. So like
Mm-hmm.
would this potentially be a new line for you or no?
Oh yeah, definitely because
Because
it
you love
has.
rom-coms and stuff too. So
Oh yeah, definitely. And it just had these fun beats to it that were dramatic enough. Like I was laughing out loud so much while reading this because there were just these great moments in there and in just situations that I could see myself in,
oh, I
which,
love it.
Presents doesn't quite have that. But I just wanted to shout out a few others that I put into my cart when I was on the Harlequin website looking at the Kiss line because there were so many of them for like $2 or something. So the first one I picked up, Celestine, was Driving Her Crazy by Amy
Amy
Andrews.
Andrews. I have that one too on the Glow app.
Yeah,
We have to read it together now, Aaron.
we should, yeah.
Oh
And then I
man.
have Don't Tell the Wedding Planner by Amy Carson and Beach Bar Baby by Heidi Rice.
I was just about to read that. I'm okay. I gotta read that now.
Aaron, what do you think of the titles though? What do you think of the titles? Are the titles like they're not like Snowbound with a billionaire while pregnant, What do you think of the titles?
Yeah, I think they're fine. I mean, they still have the giving you an idea of what the story's going to be about,
Yeah.
and tie it in with the cover too, like
Yes.
the Driving Her Crazy. The heroine is sitting on the hood of a car while the hero embraces her, and I guess not so much Don't Tell the Wedding Planner, but it's got a really fun shot of just the heroine's legs, and then Beach Bar Baby, it's a very beach setting, like exercise attire, things like that.
Yes. Okay, Celestine, did you read anything that you want to share?
His Until Midnight by Nikki Logan. Oh my
Okay.
gosh, that was one of my favorite because one of my favorite films, well, like film series, it's the Before series, Before Sunrise, Midnight, all those with Ethan Hawke and Julie Depley. I love like a ticking clock. They have to make a decision about their relationship. They've only got so much time before they have to say goodbye or depart. And so His Until Midnight is about these two people who, like, she's married to their mutual best friend, right? And so every like Christmas holiday, because she lives in Australia, he lives in Hong Kong or Singapore, and they meet, they have dinner, this extravagant dinner and they spend the day together once a year. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. And so they're always together, but there's this attraction between them and they can't act on it because if they did, it's too much. I was like, oh my goodness. So they keep meeting, they meet. And then one year she doesn't show up and she leaves him without any explanation. And then the next year she shows up and her husband, his friend, is dead. What? And so that was the thing that wasn't keeping them acting on their emotions. And they used this whole story between them about this. And throughout the book, they're having this extravagant dinner and he's made his fortune. He's like a billionaire, and you learn about his issues. He has all this money in the world, but he's stunted through his inability to love, and she breaks down those walls and she has her own issues, and like the time's ticking down because she's leaving in the morning. And I love that kind of ticking clock where it's just like,
I love a ticking clock.
oh yes, and you're reading it and they're just like, it's the way it ends. I didn't remember it the way it ended, but then when I reread it, I was like, I like the way it ended because it wasn't like, she made it very clear what he was doing, because he was doing the thing where it's just like, oh, I'm sending you away because I love you. And she's like, this isn't about you protecting me. This is about you protecting yourself. And she reads him for filth in the limo ride to the airport. And I was like, yes. I'll
I
just
totally
like
just added that to Goodreads, and then I saw that she has another title called My Boyfriend and Other Enemies, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm so
the
intrigued."
the titles are giving me like I don't think people understand. I came up in like the while you were sleeping era of rom-coms, the wedding planner, all the type of titles that you see in the Kiss line, there were movies. And the movies were there. They were in theaters and they made all this money. And it was one of those things. How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Come on. And they have all those type of titles. His Until Midnight, literally, they're like, listen, like he is just like it was just fun, flirty. They have heavy issues behind a lot behind just like real issues where it's just like how because the first people that we love, the first people we come to love are our parents and how our parental relationships or either lack of parental relationships or overwhelming like parental relationships or the expectations our families have for us shape us into what we expect from love, what we want for love. So it
Yeah.
doesn't shy from it. It's not like, oh, you're the reason why I can't love. And I said, it's always, especially in Kiss, it's always like, I saw the way love affected the person that I care about. How am I able to love? If you're my first example of what love could be, and if I see love being used as a weapon or being taken away or being on or love on conditions, how do I make it forward with someone when I want to love someone? And that's what I really like about it. Like, and they talk about therapy. They talk about doing the work and not automatically
Yeah.
being like, love will heal us. We'll work it out. It's like, no. Like when the epilogue takes place a year later, and he's like, this is what I've done. This is how I've healed. This is what I'm doing. And this is how, he makes his grand gesture, but it's a grand gesture that means that you actually care about me or you care about what's going on with
You
us.
put in the work.
You put in the work. And because like hopefully in what I'm writing, I want people to say like, okay, they're going to be okay. It's not like you close the book like, nah, they're going to break up. They got to break up automatically.
Yeah.
Or
You wanna believe they're gonna stay together.
yeah, they're gonna stay together because they're going to like, you know what? We're gonna get there and we're gonna work together and I'm gonna work at our relationship every day. I'm gonna work on myself every day.
Well, I read Faking It to Making It by the wonderful Allie Blake, and this is set in Melbourne, and it is a romance about what you're looking for set in the world of online dating. So our heroine is Saskia and she is a mathematician and she's doing this like freelance job doing statistical research, which involves she's trying to create an infographic on online dating. And there's this dating website called Dating by Numbers. And one day she sees the hero Nate. He's put a profile out there and he's very open about like, I'm just looking for a date for a wedding. So because he has sisters and his sisters are like, okay, it's time for you to be in a relationship. We're going to start hooking you up. And that's the last thing he wants. He doesn't want a relationship. Like they lost their father. And when his father passed, I think he was like 16 or 17, he became the man of the house. And like all that emotional, aftermath just weighed on him. And he's like, I'm good. I don't want to put myself in that situation. Like I don't want a relationship like that. So he just wants a date to the wedding. So they both have their whys of like why they're on this website. But of course, it's like, I need you to pretend to be my girlfriend because like I'm going to eventually introduce you to my sisters and things. And the cool thing about Saskia is, I mean, it felt a little Cinderella-ish, but not really. I mean, she's like, I guess the best way I can describe her is like, kind of like a hippie hipster. Like she's like all free loving and dresses. He's a billionaire, like suits and ties and stuff. And she's just like, cool pants and long flowing shirts and messy buns and clearly not from his world, but like his mom, his sisters meet her, they fall in love. And it's like at some point, the relationship, what I thought, I mean, Allie Blake, her website, she even shares this, like she writes her romances with like a little bit of pixie dust. And like, that's how I felt. Like I finished this book and I was just like, oh man, I want to write books that have people feeling like this. Like it's just, it was really fun and flirty. And I emailed her and I'm like, okay, you write for True Love and you wrote for Kiss. Like, how did they feel different? And she's just like, the emotional part of writing for the romance line, it can be tough. Whereas with Kiss, it was just fun and flirty and sexy. And like, I'm like, her tone is the same regardless of which line you're reading her in. But she did such a wonderful job, I think, of like giving us that point in the relationship where it isn't fake anymore. As much as either one or both of the characters like try to convince themselves of, it's like we're actually in a relationship no matter like of how much we're trying to fake it. It was beautiful. So then I found out like it was actually the second book. So I was like, well, of course I'm going to go back to read the first one. And I read the first one, and it's called The Secret Wedding Dress. And the gist of it is there's a wedding dress store that is selling dresses at like 90% off. And so she goes with her homegirl, and she's like, she has no plans on getting married. She doesn't want a wedding dress. But as in any true girl fashion, if you see the dress, you're like, oh, I'm going to snatch it, on top of the fact that it's 90% off. So she gets it. And then she's on the lift because, again, Allie lives in Australia. So I'm like, I'm assuming the lift is the elevator. So she's in the lift, and in walks, she's holding this wedding dress, in walks the hero. Like the man of your dreams walks into the elevator as you're holding a freaking wedding dress. And like her dad was like a notorious cheater before her mom finally got the guts to leave him. So her thing is like, if this jerk flirts with me while I'm holding this wedding dress, never mind the fact that it's just because I thought it was cute and it was on sale, he's not a good guy. And my biggest takeaway from that book is that I love a really hot elevator scene. Like, there you go.
Who doesn't?
Yes.
I loved it, you all. I feel like, do you feel like Kiss January was a successful time? Like, what do y'all say? I think it was successful.
Big success. Yes.
Absolutely. It helped because I am knee deep in revisions, and I was just like, I need something fun. I need something flirty. And I was just like, yes, this is why I was just like, I wanted to write romance books like this.
I mean, and there's a lot of, there are readers of category that don't even know about this line. So do you two feel like if someone is new to category, do you think that this is a line that holds up and is worth digging back into? Like, check them out from your library, get on Harlequin's website and download them. Like, do you feel like it's worth the time for a new to category reader to go seek these out?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Well, I feel like our job here is done.
Boom.
Celestine, tell everybody where they can follow you online.
I am online on Twitter, off and on at Jellybean Ray. That's my Twitter handle. I'm also on Instagram at Celestine Martin Author. And also you can find my very needed to be updated website at CelestineMartin.com.
Well, listeners, make sure you check the show notes. We will have links to where you can keep up with the incredible Celestine Martin. You'll have to come back. Like, we have a podcast and we love talking about books, and
I'm already scheduling
books, so
for the next time.
You have to come back.
So like, listen, I'm following you on Twitter. So if you're like, we're gonna read, yes, whatever it is, yes.
Good to know.